Welcome on in here to First Pitch. It is August 3rd, and it's another morning edition we got here for you, getting you that actionable info nice and early for some of these day games and night games on the slate this evening on a Wednesday. I'm your host, Dan Alexander, and today with Jeff Michaels, Steve Merrill, and Jimmy Adams, we'll be breaking down Baltimore taking on Toronto, Astros at Yankees, Mets visiting the Royals, the Reds taking on the Cubs, Rangers facing the White Sox, and the my Phillies playing the Miami Marlins. So 6 different games, 6 different plays for you here on First Pitch. Let's get to it and welcome in the guys, Jeff Michaels, Steve Merrill, Jimmy Adams. Jeff, let me kick it off with you, brother. You want to take a look at this Baltimore and Toronto game. Big game breakdown time while you're rocking the Cleveland fitted. I like it. How are you betting this one?
Yeah, I had to get one more rep through this Cleveland gear since I'm not going to be able to, wear it much through the month of October, it looks like, unfortunately. But hey, let's talk about two teams that very well may be playing baseball in October. And Baltimore and Toronto here, AL East, is always going to be exciting. But I really think I have to look at the over here. I was looking against Jack Flaherty because, this situation here on the pitchers that have gotten traded over, playing in a situation like this, playing as an away dog of more than plus 110, they're just 5-23 with first start on a new team in this situation. So playing on the road and playing as an underdog, it is not an ideal situation to start your tenure off with a team. Like I said, 5-23 record for that team in that game. So it doesn't look, well for Flaherty, but it's not a team in Baltimore here that I really want to bet against. Kevin Gausman and Flaherty have had some relatively high ERA numbers on, significant splits here, but they have had good records. So they're not pitchers exactly that I want to bet against, but those inflated ERAs and the bats that we obviously see coming out of these lineups do look like we're going to have an over here tonight, in my opinion, especially with Baltimore looking to bounce back from only putting up one run in the game last night. So, I do think it's an interesting angle with the new pitcher here pitching for the first time for his team in a big game. But I think we're going to see some runs here in this AL East matchup.
Looking towards some runs here. Baltimore, Toronto, and Toronto finally got off the snide at home against Baltimore yesterday. So maybe the bats continue here today, says our man Jeff Michaels. Check him out, wt.buzz/JM. Steve, Mets and Royals. I think we all know that Mets were maybe the most prominent sellers at the deadline. Honest assessment probably of what we've seen from them this year. But Steve, they're not really about to get swept by Kansas City, are they? How are you betting this one?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Jeff's written off his Cleveland Guardians. They're just 2 games back in that awful AL Central, so he has a chance. I'll tell you 2 teams, Dan, that do not have a chance. Well, but I'll take it a step further. I'll tell you the 2 hats you don't want to be wearing, and that's definitely the Kansas City Royals, obviously, but the New York Mets also big trouble. And look, the definition of sellers at the trade deadline. This team had the highest payroll in baseball coming into the season. They were buyers when the season began. And Scherzer, Verlander, aging veterans, 37, 40, 41-year-old pitchers gone. And I mean, this is a team that obviously sold off, as they should, by the way. They're 4th in their own division. They're 19.5 behind the mighty Braves, 7 out of the wild card now after back-to-back losses against Kansas City. But momentum is a very underrated thing in baseball. And it's a 162-game season. And we talked about this with the Oakland A's about a month ago. Oakland was on a historically bad run in baseball. They are on a pace to have the worst record in the history of baseball. And then they suddenly win 7 straight games, and they've been awful ever since. The Royals at times were only 1 game better than the A's about a month ago, and now they've gone on a 5-game win streak, and as is often the case, it's coincided with the offense heating up, and they're in good offensive current form. This team has put up 7 runs or more in 3 of those last 5 wins, so there's been nothing misleading about it. They've had 9 hits or more now in 5 of their last 6 games overall. So their offense is hitting the ball, and that's often what makes a difference between winning and losing. And then you got a New York Mets team that obviously has nothing to play for. I do think maybe if they call up some youngsters in September, maybe they'll get a spark, but I'm not sure they have much left in the young system because they've given so much away to get those aging veterans that they've now offloaded. So yes, the Mets are a pure play against right now. It's not a coincidence. They're down 0-2 in this 3-game series and very likely get swept this afternoon on Thursday. And the betting markets are telling us something. Talking about one of the worst teams in the history of baseball, Kansas City Royals, slight favorite in this game. And I don't disagree. I think there's value with the Royals here. If you're looking at the side, that'd be the only way I'd play it. But I also wouldn't talk you off the over. It's sitting at 9 flat, which is a very key number. And once again, Kansas City in good offensive current form. They've gone over 4 of their last 6. And once again, they've put up 7 runs or more in 3 of those past 5 wins. The Mets did get shut out yesterday on Wednesday, but their offense has actually been in decent current form. They've got 5 runs or more in the other 4 games right before that. So I would lean Kansas City, but I also like the over 9 in this afternoon matchup.
Ooh, nice little twofer there from our man Steve Merrill in the big game breakdown. Mets, Royals. Let's swing it on to Jimmy Adams. He's got a breakdown for us in the Rangers and White Sox. Jimmy?
Well, Dan, it should be an electric day in Arlington, which is where we're headed for today's big game breakdown as the Rangers and White Sox conclude their series. Max Scherzer was all too happy to waive his no trade. The Mets front office told him not only did they not plan to compete this year, but they don't really plan to compete in 2024 either. Just a complete disappointment. I feel really bad for the fans who had such high expectations. The biggest payroll in North America just gets completely blown up. But now Scherzer finds himself in a very good spot as the Rangers definitely need to add some pitching because the offense is as good as any team in baseball. Texas has scored the most runs and is the only team with 1,000 hits on the season. And, Scherzer, he's been somewhat, but he's going to bring a fire, competitiveness, and leadership that you just have to love and can only help Texas. Fresh off 7 innings of 1-run ball against the Natties, he's going to bring a high strikeout rate, a high chase rate as well, and he won't have much trouble shutting down a poor White Sox lineup, a Chicago team that has disappointed severely for the 2nd straight year in a row. Touki Toussaint, he's been a journeyman. And he's been on teams in his young career, up and down from the minors, was acquired by the White Sox at the end of June. He has an ERA of 3.50, but a FIP of 4.55. So that tells us that there's a lot more regression coming his way. Serious command issues as well. That's part of what hurts his FIP. He walks a lot of batters, but everything sets up very well for Texas today in Scherzer's debut. If you're going to play this game, I think you have to go with the run line, and that's the way I lean for today's big game breakdown.
Big thanks, Jimmy Adams. Check him out, wt.buzz/JA. And let's swing it back on up to our man Jeff Michaels. Best bet time already here on the day game edition. And you want to talk a little New York Yankees, the Astros on the road, and it's the Verlander saga, I guess, for the Astros. How are you going to be betting this one here, Jeff?
Yeah, it's been funky, I think. We've seen, obviously, a trade deadline that's been exciting, but you look at that Royals team. I mean, Steve said it. Royals are a favorite. San Diego went from -200 against Texas to the next day having the same line against Colorado. How do you put those two opponents on the same? These lines just seem so off to me. And New York is obviously not a team that we're looking at as buyers here at the trade deadline or what passed at the trade deadline, obviously. Where Houston only made a couple moves, but I think they made some pretty big moves here. And with how close this line is in this game, I can't look any way other than Houston. Clark Schmidt has actually been pretty good in his last couple starts. They've won 3 straight outings for him, but only one of those 3 starts were at home. And look who they played. Hey, those pesky Kansas City Royals again there. And the Yankees got the win in that one. They did pull out the win over the Royals. But Schmidt struggled at home this season. The Yankees are only 4-8 in his home starts. And the biggest thing that caught my attention, we saw those Yankees bats bust open for a couple runs on the Rays yesterday. How about this one? That Bronx Bombers offense that we were so accustomed to seeing last year. Well, in their last 11 games, they're 1-10 as a favorite of less than 160 or an underdog after putting up 5 runs or more. It was almost like we were seeing 5 runs every game from the Yankees last year in that offense. Obviously, thanks to Judge, or a big portion of that was thanks to Judge, which has changed this year. Now they put up 5 runs and they're a small favorite or an underdog. They're 1-10. They can't do it 2 games in a row, and they got a hard opponent to go up against, obviously, here with Houston improving and only getting better than what they already were. So this small of a line, I'm going with the Astros tonight for my best bet.
Astros minus 110 taking on the New York Yankees. That's great stuff there from Jeff Michaels. Make sure you check him out. And also college football right around the corner. Grab that college football guide that he and the pen and the young pen worked hard on that one together. Check them out over at WagerTalk.com. Steve, you're going to get a little look for us here. A total. I think our lone total here of the day, Reds and Cubs. And Steve, numbers that the Cubs have put up this series is probably more than what we're going to even see tonight in the NFL Hall of Fame game. So is it as easy as just saying, well, a lot of runs by the Cubs, maybe the Reds can hold up their end of the bargain? Now, where are we going as this total sitting around 10?
Yeah, we're going to look at a free play here for Thursday night. A lot of daytime games, but don't forget there's nighttime games as well. Check out my best bets for Thursday, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. You can get there quicker with shortcut wt.buzz/SM. And don't forget about these free plays. Back-to-back free winners on both Tuesday and Wednesday night for my free plays at wagertalk.com. Hitting over 60% the past several months with MLB free plays. We're going to have another one here for tonight. And it's actually the same one I used last night, which was a very easy winner, and that's the over between the Cubs and the Reds. Got to like it when you take over 10.5 and they put up 22 runs. The Cubs did it on their own last night, putting up 16 on Wednesday. And not a surprise, they put up 20 the night before, and they had 5 the game before that, and they got shut out in their final game against St. Louis on Sunday. So it just shows why you can't read too much into one game, because the Cubs have still been red hot offensively. They've now put up 5 runs or more in 9 of their last 11 games, including those 36 runs the last 2 nights here in Wrigley. And Cincinnati's been doing their part offensively as well. Cincinnati Reds have put up 5 runs or more in every one of these 3 games. And they've had total of now 21 runs so far in this series. This will be the 4th and final game. The first 3 have gone over. And I still think we get some value over the 10 to 10.5. Wind was blowing out yesterday in Wrigley, but that wasn't the reason that they put up 22 runs. And it's going to be neutral tonight. We're looking at winds of about 2 to 3 miles an hour. So wind will not be a factor one way or the other. 2 red hot offenses. The Reds have been an overplay all season with that offense and lack of pitching. And the Cubs are the hottest offensive team in baseball right now. It all adds up to another over, just like last night on Wednesday. Once again, play the Cubs and Reds over the 10 to 10.5. That goes tonight on Thursday at 8 o'clock Eastern. And don't forget, you can save an instant $50 off a full month of baseball with promo code MLB30, MLB30, MLB30. Full details on my page right now, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com.
The old, if it ain't broke, don't fix it there in the Reds and Cubs game over the 10. And again, make sure you check out that MLB 30, WT.buzz/SM. All right, Jimmy Adams going to get the final word here. And apropos, he's going to be talking some Phillies, taking on the Marlins. Jimmy, what do we got?
Well, it's going to be a huge day on the diamond for me and my clients. I've got a 5% play locked and loaded. We've hit 3 straight of those. Going for our 4th straight tonight. You know where to get it. Just head over to Wager Talk. But for today's best bets, we went to Miami as the Marlins and Phillies wrap up an series. Philly's really done a nice job of distancing themselves from Miami, or beginning to anyway, because there's really not much room for error in this division. Obviously, the Braves are going to win the division, which leaves both these teams fighting for a wild card spot in what is a jam-packed NL race. Like, realistically, there are 7 team realistic shot to get a wild card berth. So the Phillies will go for the sweep with the newly acquired all-star pitcher Michael Lorenzen making his debut. If you'll notice on the show, I am betting on both starters making their new team, and this is something that I like to do because starters tend to bring their A game when they're making a debut, and it's worked for me historically. But Lorenzen's a very good pitcher, and he enters in phenomenal current form. Went 3 starts without allowing a single run before giving up 3 to the Angels last time out. The Marlins have been a complete mess since the All-Star break. They're just in absolute regression mode. Now, either at risk of getting swept or of losing the series. It is in the top of the 11th as this is recorded, so we will find out. But they will turn to Johnny Cueto. Cueto has only made 4 appearances on the year, 3 starts, and the Marlins have lost every game he's pitched in. He gave up 4 to a terrible Tigers offense, including 2 bombs last time out. And things just don't look good for him as he nears the end of his career. Like Adam Wainwright, he's a pitcher that we can only look to fade. This will be a bet on the Phillies and a fade of Miami. Give me the Phillies for today's best bet.
And that is going to do it here for another edition of First Pitch. Best of luck on those day games and those night games, as Steve mentioned. Big thanks to Jeff Michaels, Steve Merrill, and Jimmy Adams. If you want some more actionable info, don't go anywhere. Stay right here on WagerTalk TV.